Today, I'm going to be challenging the 5.5 Imaginarium Theater in Visionary mode. I was pleasantly surprised that I had the option this time because I usually don't have enough characters. This month's elements are Pyro, Electro, and Animal. Unfortunately, my only built opening character here is Chlorand. I have Beto at level 70, but her artifacts are a mess, and I haven't used her since the early game. So I'm gonna have to use most of the trial characters, which is a drawback since they typically aren't built that well. I'm just going through my character list to make sure everyone has the right weapons. I do share weapons between some characters, so some of them are on slightly subpar equipment. This is the finalized cast. I'm borrowing a C1R1 Hu Tao from a friend as my supporting cast member. I always use Fantasia flowers to purchase the companions. Those are definitely my priority just to make team building easier and more flexible. I'm gonna go for raiden here since my only reliable DPS so far is Chlorand. Let's start Act 1 with this Hilichurl battle. So in the earlier stages of Imaginarium, I always make sure to choose quote-unquote bad characters. In this case, the trial characters will likely not be that great compared to my actual built characters. We're starting this off with Beto, Sucrose, Yoimiya, and Xiao. Very random team, but the earlier acts tend to be a little easier, so I'd rather get these characters over with so that I can save my stronger characters for harder stages. By the way, I don't really know how to use any of these characters, so please excuse any scuffed gameplay. I didn't have enough time to defeat all the enemies for the star achievement, so I'm going to restart. By the way, as of right now, the stars don't matter in Imaginarium, but starting in 5.6, I believe that Genshin said that they would add more rewards for getting the stars. I tried using this team again and I was a little bit more careful in my rotations, but I still didn't have enough time for the final monster. Obviously this quadruple trial character team is not really working, so I'm just gonna bring in the big guns and add raiden in place of Yoimiya. It did take some time and it wasn't super clean. I did manage to pass Act 1 with the star. And then I'll choose Official as the new cast member. Let's keep moving with Act 2. I'm using a pretty solid Chlorand team with Official, Sucrose, and Toma. And this battle was pretty easy. I'll go with Hu Tao here because I need more DPS characters in my cast. I'm just gonna buy another companion here, and I was debating about this a little, but I decided to go for Pyro Traveler since I already have Hu Tao.
This world is full of unsolved mysteries.
I'll also grab Yaimiko.
Well, since you asked so nicely.
Here I ended up choosing Arlecchino anyway.
This will be a productive partnership, I hope.
And then we'll go for an overload buff, and lastly I'll add Kazuha to the team. I did a lot of shopping here, but it's good because hopefully it'll make my team building easier. Now for Act 3, this is the first boss battle. I'm doing a simple overload team and I chose Hu Tao because I wanted to save my Arlecchino for the harder battles. Please excuse my Hu Tao gameplay, by the way, because I don't have her and I don't really know how to use her properly. Honestly, I think the boss battles are always easier than the regular stages because you're more inclined to use a stronger team for them, at least for me. I was getting close to the deadline on the star timer, but I did manage to pass. For my next character, I'm just gonna add Mizuki. Jumping straight into Act 4. Very sadly, this is a Protect the Monolith stage. I chose this rather ragtag team with Raiden, Kazuha, Pyro Traveler, and Mizuki. I'm hoping Raiden can carry here, and maybe Mizuki can swirl Raiden and Pyro Traveler and provide some healing too. I just don't like how long this stage is. Like, is it really necessary to protect a monolith for more than 3 minutes? Mizuki's down, but thankfully it doesn't affect anything as long as we can still clear. I wasn't struggling too much here with the monolith HP, so this was pretty easy, albeit the battle is just like a minute too long. I'll go for Chevreuse for my next cast member. I'll grab another buff as well as Kuki.
Wait for my signal.
For this battle, I wanted to try using my trial characters again alongside Kazuha for grouping. But it was obvious I wasn't gonna pass. So I'm switching it up and trying a Cloran team since she has pretty good AoE. It wasn't a horrible run, but I'm still missing like 5 enemies for the star. Let's try again, but this time I'll add Kazuha and Beto. Still trying to use some trial characters if possible. This team performed a little worse than the last one, so I switched out Beto for Fischl. On paper, I think this is a pretty decent team, but I still couldn't get the star. I decided to scrap the Cloran team and essentially do a solo Arlecchino team. Mizuki and Beto are basically placeholders, and Yoimiya is there for the Pyro Resonance. My Arlecchino is C2R1, so I thought that maybe she would be able to pull this off. Her C2 lets her immediately use her upgraded Bond of Life without having to wait the 5 seconds. And since her burst refreshes her skill cooldown, I could use her full Bond of Life twice in a row. Since she has pretty much no external buffing though, she wasn't doing any like crazy damage and it was going slower than I expected. The countdown was starting to worry me a bit because I still had a few enemies left to go and Arlecchino wasn't exactly like melting through these guys. I was mashing buttons like crazy at this point and I managed to defeat the last enemy literally at 0 seconds and I was able to get the star. Had to take a quick breather here for sure, but because of my newfound DPS anxiety, I chose Chaska as my next character. Now we're in Act 6, which is the second boss battle. I'm grabbing another buff and going in. I'm facing the Tenebrous Papilla, and I'm sure many of you dislike the boss, as do I. My team here includes Kuki, and Kuki's burst does a lot of individual elemental attacks, which helps with the Papilla's shield. Toma for shielding her team, Chevreuse for overload buffing, and Cloran also for her frequent elemental attacks. and I managed to pass this one on my first try. And our next choice here will be Bennett. I'm gonna refresh the events and grab Shen Yun for my cast.
I trust you have packed ample foodstuffs.
Now that I have Shen Yun, I just want to attempt using Xiao again. I don't know why, because I have enough other DPS characters in the roster, but in Imaginarium, I have such a frugal mindset. Like, I try not to use my best characters until the last few stages, and then I end up not even being able to use them all the way, so I don't know why I do that. Anyway, as expected, this trial Xiao wasn't working out at all, so I opted for a Hu Tao plunge team. Plunges have pretty good AoE, so that's helpful. I just barely passed the stage with the star with only 2 seconds left on the timer. And here, I'll just grab Shilonen. It's finally the Act 8 boss battle, and I'll grab Mavlika, Xiangling, and Veressa. We're fighting the Hydro Tulpa, so I decided to use a Chaska team for mobility and range, and Mavlika should be able to get some decent vaporize hits as well. Mavlika got a solid 426k burst, which is awesome, but the Tulpa's health bar barely went down, which is kind of crazy. I'm trying not to place my Bennett circle directly on top of the Tulpa, because then it becomes a little inconvenient to use Chaska. I have to aim downwards and simultaneously try to not get hit while staying within the circle borders, which is a little hard to tell from the air. Yeah, there's a lot of factors here. And thankfully I beat this on the first attempt. I'm gonna pick Yanfei here. She's holding Thrilling Tales, so she could be like a pseudo support. Now we are in true visionary territory. Since there's an advantage to being in Naito's Blessing, I'm gonna use Veressa and Shilonen in my team here. I can't seem to control Veressa's aiming, so she keeps going for the smaller Hilichurls instead of the main enemy. I'm gonna use the same team but swap out Shilonen for Kazuha to see if maybe his grouping will help with Veressa's aiming. But I'm still having the same problem with Veressa. I don't know if I'm playing her wrong, like I don't know if I maybe have to aim better with her hits or if it's automatic. So I decided to just use Arlecchino instead and brute force it. It ended up working out with only 3 seconds left on the start timer. I'll take Xiao as my last pick. We're finally here in the final act. I'm doing some shopping and using the rest of my flowers to get some more buffs. My final team of choice is an overload team with Mavuika, Kuki, Chevreuse, and Veressa. Again, I do apologize if my gameplay isn't the best. I don't really have full knowledge of how certain bosses or enemies work. Feel free to leave me any advice or feedback. And with that, I beat Act 10. Now for the ending credits. Mavuika dealt the highest damage at 426k, which I think is actually quite good because I wasn't using her as a main DPS for any of my teams. If you're interested in seeing the builds for my characters, be sure to check out my account tour video on my channel as well as my Veressa build video. This is the second time I was able to do visionary mode, and overall it was quite fun and fulfilling. I personally do like the Imaginarium Theater, and I hope that Genshin will only improve upon it in the future as well as add more endgame modes. Be sure to subscribe, like, and leave a comment if you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts about the Imaginarium Theater and how you performed in this season. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.